Ahead and do. All right, so we are live. So thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Achieve 10X TV. And today we have a special guest, Kevin Lancaster. He is the president of Prosperity Bank here in Cedar Park, and I'm super excited to have you. So Kevin, thank you for spending the time to do this.
No problem. Thank you, Jimmy. We appreciate the opportunity to be out here for Prosperity. As Jimmy indicated, I'm the banking center president here in Cedar Park. I do a lot of commercial lending, and recently I was able to help Jimmy and his wife, Jessica.
Yeah, and so I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But probably the topic on every business owner's mind right now is what is going on with the PPP. So can you give us a little more details about that?
Sure. So the PPP is part of the stimulus package that is brought around recently with the CARES Act. It was actually brought out about 3 weeks ago. And within the first week, I mean, obviously it came in at a 50,000 foot level, and then SBA had to put the particulars associated with it done in about a week. We started taking applications about 2 weeks ago. And within the first week and a half, that program had exhausted all of its funds in a very short manner of time. Most clients, probably 20% of the clients, actually received any funding whatsoever associated with that. Congress then went back and reappropriated funds for it. It has passed the Senate currently. It is now in the House being negotiated. I expect it to come out of the House signed today and should go to the president's desk later today, if not tomorrow, at which time we'll have funding hopefully on Friday, if not this weekend or Monday, and then we'll start the process all over. A lot of clients are looking for this. They've already had the discussion right now that it's quite woefully underfunded still. Yeah. So what that means a lot is I happened to talk to some colleagues of mine and some of the larger banks, and they were indicating that right now within their queue at the larger banks, they have enough to fund the entire amount that's been appropriated currently. So it's everybody right now trying to push through and get an approval through SBA, and SBA right now is not allowing first come, first serve. It's kind of picking and choosing on what comes in. There's not been a rhyme or reason from what I have seen personally on the loans that I have seen come back. I had loans that went in immediately and I did not come back with an approval. And I had other loans that came in a number 30 or 40 in my queue, and they were approved. So there wasn't any rhyme or reason to how or why certain loans were approved and others were not.
Yeah, I think there's, definitely a lot of confusion as to, people thinking that there may be some type of formula that the SBA is approving these loans, but based on what you're saying, it's just, there's really nothing.
What I'm seeing is truly the luck of the draw. Yeah. God's blessing, God's will. If there's not a true format that says, hey, first come, first serve. There's also legislation already being drafted in California to go against like Chases and Wells of the world that, hey, you didn't put us in, first come, first serve order. You were trying to take care of your higher end clients and things. And, it's a shame to see and hear. And there's no real way of probably orchestrating that and knowing for certain. But I do definitely can say what's going on with SBA is we'll submit a batch and I cannot determine a rhyme or reason as to how and where the funding is coming from besides, hey, this loan was approved, let's go with it. And of course, as soon as you get that, you immediately get it closed for your customers and get moving on, because from the time that they have an approval and the funding amount, they only have 10 days with which to get it funded. And by God, we're making sure that that's happening right away.
Nice. Yeah, so that's really good to know, because some people may be thinking the banks are deciding who gets the PPP loan and who doesn't. But you're saying that no, the banks have no say in it, and all the banks do is just submit it, and it's really up to the SBA.
That is really a truthful statement, more than anything else. I mean, we've submitted upwards to about 10,000 applications, and we only have about 2,500 of those approved.
Wow.
So it's about a 25% deal. And that was in the first batch. And of course, it's now increased since the second meeting right now at any point to turn on the switch again to SBA and look to get funding again. So as much as I would love to tell you there's a formula that I'll just, there is not one that I've been able to determine whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I wanted you on the show, because there's so much misinformation, so much speculation about what's going on, and everybody's like, oh, you know, some people are doing this, doing that, the government's doing this and that, banks are doing this and that, and so there's a lot of misinformation, and that's why, thankfully, you know, that's why I definitely wanted you on the show to kind of, you know, squash, you know, all of that, the myths, but also just to, you know, say exactly what is going on. So I appreciate that.
Well, I can definitely tell you from Prosperity's perspective, my team and I, we've been working 10 and 12-hour days, getting loans prepared, getting them on queue for SBA, submitting them, you know, and right now we have another large queue ready to go to SBA as soon as they decide and tell us what to do. So here's another kind of misnomer. I mean, obviously SBA is doing this on the fly.
Yeah.
So what that means to y'all is their normal transaction load is about 22 million on an annual basis type situation. So that, let me rephrase it, they're doing about 22 times their annual transaction base in this 2 weeks.
Wow.
So imagine you as a company trying to do 22 times your annual salary in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So everybody's drinking from a water hose around here, and it's turned on now to a fire hose, and how much is being brought in. I don't think our lawmakers understand just how much the need is out there. And you're seeing a lot of companies that, you know, have servers. So our restaurant industry, I have warehouse companies where they're supplying out to the food industry, and I have department stores and things of that nature. Nobody's there. You know, so you look at it and you figure, well, it's really not that bad. I'm staying at home. But what you're not realizing is all those other industries. I mean, even look at gasoline right now, the oil industry. Yes, you know, we're at record lows right now for a gallon of gas. And the other day, oil was inverted where they were actually paying people to take their oil and stuff. But the reality is, that nobody's out driving their cars or moving back and forth. I don't know about you, but I've been going to work every day for the past month through all of this, and all at once, it's great. I can get to work in 5 minutes. It's no big deal. But the reality is nobody else is out there doing anything.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a drop in traffic. Yeah, with that. So are there any other myths that you can, you know, dispel about the PPP?
No, at this point in time, so the PPP, let's talk about it real quickly. This is what we know as of right now for what you can utilize it for. To have it forgiven, SBA has given us the guidelines of 75% of it needs to be for payroll for an 8-week period. And that starts from the time you get it and then forward. And 25% of it can be utilized for lease payments or interest on principal payments. So in other words, if you own the building, you can write off the interest portion of the principal reduction if that's your building. Utilities is also the other item that's out there. Now, everybody's starting to look towards us and go, so how are we going to identify exactly what these are? Well, what I will tell you is just make sure there's a good paper trail from the funds into what you're paying with the funds, and you can account for all the dollar amount. Some of my clients have gone ahead and opened a separate checking account to put the funds into, and then be able to funnel out directly from there. So it's a very clean paper trail. Others are just keeping track of their payroll expenses, both specifically on the W-2 side and then obviously the 941s. Some of the other things I would highly let you know, we have not received guidance yet from SBA on how the forgiveness portion is going to work. So The loan itself, once you receive it, has a 6-month grace period. So that means there's interest only accruing on that during that period of time. It'll allow you to utilize those funds, pay for your payroll, and then once SBA has given us guidelines as what it will require to show that you've utilized it properly, then we will submit that to SBA for the forgiveness portion. If there's anything left over, then that remaining portion would be on a 2-year period at 1% interest. So you'd have approximately 18 monthly payments of whatever's left over at 1% interest. So there's kind of a more detailed or more explanation of how the program works, but there are still a number of variables that we do not have guidance on from SBA.
So based on what you're saying, after the 6-month period, it accrues at 1% interest. So it's because some people were saying that you would have to use, that the PPP money within a certain time frame. So that's not the case, or is that the case?
Yes, the PPP needs to be utilized in the first 8 weeks for payroll. So it's basically a 2-month period. So when we've been calculating, we've been looking at the average payroll and we multiply it by 2.5. So it covers your average payroll for 2 months. And then that half indicates for utilities, for rents, things of that nature.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have to use it. Okay. All right. That's great information. Anything else that you want to, you can share with us that maybe the public doesn't know about the PPP?
No, that's pretty much it. The only, I guess, the other options that we are aware of is the EIDL loan. That's the Emergency Disaster Relief Loan that's out there. If you do receive that, you do need to make sure that your lender is aware, because they're trying to combine those two and put it into one in a PPP, so it's actually paying off the EIDL.
Mm-hmm.
I have not actually had but one client receive the EIDL loans currently. A lot of them have received confirmation that their application has been received, but once again, the EIDL loan hasn't received enough funding either to cover the demand associated with it. So I'm certain there's going to be quite a bit of explanation from SBA on how that's going to work in the future, especially if you applied for the EIDL loan, you hadn't received it yet, you picked up a PPP, and then all at once they say, hey, your EIDL loan's ready to go. There's just a lot of information that hasn't been able to be processed yet by SBA and then given guidance on how to account for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, that's interesting information. So what is, so I know that you mentioned that you and your staff, y'all have been working, hard on submitting these applications. What is there a difference between someone who goes to a local bank, regional bank versus a national bank to apply for these loans? Is there any difference?
I would say if you have a relationship with your banker, that's going to be your best and foremost association with it. That person that already knows you, knows your business, that is by far the best way, because they're going to already have 90% of your financials in place. They're going to be able to help you get things put in place. A lot of banks in the area are not accepting non-customers associated with it. Prosperity took care of their current clients up front and then opened it up to non-customers at that point. I am still to this hour receiving applications for the PPP, and at this point, I'm explaining to them, the dance is over at 12 o'clock and you've arrived at 11:50. I'm not certain you're going to get much of a dance, and I guarantee you may not be able to take anybody home tonight. So with that being said, just be aware of what the expectation is. And at this point, knowing that you're coming in late on an application, the opportunity for you to be approved at this late date is going to be very slim to none. And they're already expecting, I've heard discussion today that to help continue to fill the PPP gap that's sitting out there.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's I'm definitely one of those people that was not a client of Prosperity. So that's one thing that I do appreciate. Thank you for helping us with that. One thing that I did notice, just to be transparent, is I used to bank with uh, Capital One and Chase and these big national banks. In the time of need, they really didn't help like micro businesses, like the little people like me. And so that's why we reached out to you, and that really reminded me that I myself need to, utilize local resources, support local companies more, because in the end, when you're in trouble, it's the local people that are going to help you out. And the national, they're not gonna, it's not like they're not gonna help you, but you're on the lowest on the totem pole. So I truly appreciate, Kevin, you and Prosperity helping me out. And that's the reason why I have you on here. Is just because when we had a need, you were there to help us. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Well, I
So
appreciate that, Jimmy. If
yeah,
any of y'all know me, you know I'm huge in the community. I support a lot of, recently I've supported all kinds of local restaurants. I've been on part of the 4A Economic Development Board. I've been on numerous nonprofits and things in the area. You live here, you give here. It's what you're supposed to do. So thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to your following.
yeah, no, thank you. And so, any other things that you want to speak about, whether it's the EIDL or the PPP? What I'm hearing from you is that there's not a lot of, it's like every week you're getting new information. And so right now, even if you get the PPP, it's like, besides spending it on payroll, really, like for my wife and I, we're hesitant to, we're mostly just going to use it for payroll because of the guidelines are still not clarified. We don't want to spend it on anything else in regards to
Correct.
business.
Yeah. Again, I don't think SBA was ready for this rollout. It was coming. It needed to come immediately, and it's still not as fast as some people wanted. And it doesn't have, the fine tuning associated with it. So just be patient. That's all I can tell y'all. I've had clients calling me and emailing me and texting me, and I continue to send out emails to all of my clients. So here's the newest, latest, greatest. Here's where we are. This is what's happening, just to make sure everybody stays informed. But I have no problems taking the phone call either. And they're going, well, is it going to be better for me if I open up 4 more accounts? My friend, I'm trying my absolute best to get all of my friends and my clients in place and done, because most of my clients are my friends also. So it's not anything outside of the norm. If I'm opportunity to help you, I'm going to try my absolute best to help you across no matter what. And everybody is being, worked on very diligently to get to that end goal, because I understand every small business needs help at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And you also mentioned in the early of this interview that Prosperity specializes, or you prefer, or you specialize or prefer to do, or you work more with commercial businesses, right?
Yeah. So in my real my real world, uh, in my realm prior to the PPP and stuff, probably 90% commercial real estate, uh, from investment properties to interim construction, ground up. You buy a property and you want to put a building on it, or your new office or something. We do a lot of interim constructions. I'm very fluent in that world. I do a lot of interim constructions on new homes. So my portfolio is probably 10% on the residential side and about 90% on the commercial side.
Okay.
And just, I really, I've been doing this about 30 years. It's not my first rodeo, so to speak.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm very fluent. I've also had the opportunity to be outside the banking realm. So if there's other ways to get things done, I provide opportunities for clients and say, okay, here are your options, 1, 2, and 3. Here's the pros and cons to each one of those, and then just give them back to business owners such as yourself, and say, okay, you tell me what works best for you, because you run your business on a day in and day out basis. And where I may think A is the perfect option for you, you may decide to take C because of something I know nothing about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. And I think we can talk and do another interview in regards and go deeper into the real estate and commercial. But yeah, any last words about, so today's topic is mostly just to, get some clarification from a banker
Right.
and about PPP or EIDL, SBA, any last, nuggets of wisdom?
No, just it's God's will, and I mean that with the most sincerity and stuff. Um, Continue to support our local establishments,
Yeah.
whether it's restaurants or it's the acupuncture or whatever in this case. I mean, guys, it's going to require us being out there helping our small businesses for them to be able to survive this event.
Yes, it's a great statement. All right, Kevin, I appreciate you being on the show, and we'll set up a time to do another one on the commercial side. How's that
Thank
sound?
you very much, Jimmy. You have a great day, sir.
All right, you too. All right.
All right, bye.